Welcome to your Daily 5 for Thursday, January 4th, 2024. You are no doubt in 2024 going to be inundated with stories about what is being referred to with the blanket term of AI. You know, I don't like that term for it because it implies something that isn't there. But I'm using the term everybody else is, at least at the top, so we all know what we're talking about. And 2023, that was pretty much every technology, almost every story in some way or another got back to it one way or another. And 2024 is probably going to follow suit at least for a while. But and honestly, most of it is going to be the doom hype thing where on one side, people think it's going to result in Skynet, and on the other, people think it's going to result in some kind of utopian transformation of society, which both of those views, I think, are unrealistic and just nonsense. But every so often I come across a story and I think, oh, this is something that, if used correctly, actually makes a ton of sense for these tools. And that was a statement from Square Enix, the video game company, that they're going to be aggressively using AI to generate new forms of content. Now, I should point out that the Engagdet article very wisely states, I'm going to link to it, of course, that you should take this with a grain of salt because Square Enix has made proclamations of this vague sort before and often fails to actually follow through on them. And there really are no specifics in this thing. But I started thinking about the fact that one of the major problems in the video game industry at this point, and probably for quite a while, but certainly it's pretty bad now and we're seeing a lot of it, is the problem of crunch, where to meet deadlines, game developers are overworked, work very long hours, trying to make a game deadline, which, by the way, is usually met with a game that isn't even finished to begin with. So there's kind of a really sad irony to the fact that these people are made to work to an unhealthy degree, only to launch a game that isn't done anyway. But putting that aside, it made me think, well, this is a place where these tools make sense. There's a lot of game development that I think even people who are game developers, even the ones who passionately love what they're doing, and there's different degrees of that as there is in any job, would probably tell you that there's lots of things that a machine could do for them because they're not creatively interesting and they are a necessary but uninteresting part of game development. For example, think about any game that takes place on planet Earth. Depending on what environment it's in, you're going to have a lot of background elements that honestly you might notice here and there. I mean, we've talked when Lando and I play the Ghost Recon games about how beautiful the environments are, but honestly, it doesn't matter to me whether a machine creates those or a person does, and I can't imagine there's too many people, if we're just talking about, okay, create a mountain with some snow on it, I can't imagine that's that creatively interesting to most game developers. Most game developers probably want to generate stories. They want to craft NPCs. They want to do character designs, things that make their game stand out. And that's not usually, it's not universal, but not usually going to be the environment. Or even if it is, there probably are repetitive elements to game development that even people who passionately love doing game dev would be happy to hand off to a machine. And those things make sense. Then you'd have less crunch. You might have games that are better finished because they're the tasks that people waste time on and sometimes breeze over because they're not interesting or engaging would actually be done correctly. And ideally, this would result in happier devs making better games that players enjoy more. Now, of course, the big problem with all this is that Square Enix is a company that exists to make money. And so will they use these, assuming they even use them, will they use these tools to benefit not only their own staff, but the experience for the players? No, they'll probably try to figure out a way that they can cut staff and make a game cheaper, only to charge more for it and then have more profits for themselves and their shareholders. That, of course, is the problem with any of these idealistic looks at these tools, is that they seem to forget that most companies using them are going to exist to make money, and that is going to destroy whatever utopian potential they may have, or at least in most cases. So while I read this and my initial shocking response was optimism, and there is a very specific way I could see these tools being utilized in a way that's beneficial for everyone, I don't think that's what's going to happen. Again, assuming that Square Enix even does what they say here, and they probably will to some extent because the reality is you can make things more, you can make them more efficiently and more cheaply if you don't have to pay people. No health insurance, no worrying about overworking hours. A machine doesn't complain, or at least it doesn't yet because they're not alive. So it does make sense that even if it's not the way they're describing it vaguely in this article, they probably will adopt some form of this technology. And the shame of it is, unless I'm wrong, and I could be, the shame of it is it'll probably be largely wasted because it won't be employed the right way. But we'll see. Time will tell. Later.